Some will be included in CoursePoint Plus. Maternity and Peds will be, I think, second semester on its own. We'll go through, and that's basically where PrepU is very helpful, okay? You'll like vSim better because vSim is where you actually get to work on a virtual patient. And so that's why most of us signed up to become a nurse, right? And so it lets you go in and practice, apply what you've learned, and go through, and I mean, things could go wrong. You could lose a patient, but at least it's virtually there, right? And so it's also designed to be a learning tool, gives you feedback on it, et cetera. Eventually, PassPoint, which uses that same PrepU engine, but at an NCLEX level for everything. So as you get in your second year and you're moving closer to taking the exam, it's going to allow you to really identify where you are in the big scheme of things, as opposed to the individual course points that starts with, you can do it on day one, starts with knowledge-based questions and moves up. PassPoint, everything will be NCLEX level questions, far more than you can answer. Allows you to take unlimited simulated practice exams, et cetera. So really helpful in there too. So remember, if you're like, oh my goodness, it was Monday morning, he got us off to a slow start anyway, I kind of got lost on it. You can come back here or in the links that I send you, it'll walk you through everything on setting things up, how to use PrepU, et cetera. The other thing I want to mention here is if we have any issues. So we don't have any issues with the purchases. So I think we'll be good there. Shouldn't have to worry about customer service much. But if you do have any problems, your instructors are not tech support. They'll want to know that something's going on. But the important thing is to contact tech support as quickly as possible. Okay. There's two main ways. Well, there's three ways to do it, but I'll explain what each of those are. Okay. The main thing that you're going to do is call them. Okay, if you're in the middle of the semester, everything's been going good, and all of a sudden you're getting an error of some sort, call them as quickly as you can. Okay, they can't fix it if they don't know what it is. And what they're going to do is they're going to try to say, okay, what's happening? What product are you in? What's going on? What'd you do right beforehand, right? And they're going to try to replicate the same thing on their computer. If that doesn't happen, they're going to ask some more information. But they're also going to need to know things like what type of computer are you using, which browser are you using, et cetera. Information that your instructor probably doesn't know, okay? So if anybody says they're having tech issues, what I ask you to do is ask them for their case ID, okay? That means that before you go to the instructor, please call tech support. They will either fix it, resolve it. Believe it or not, the great majority of, especially at the beginning of the semester, the most of the calls end up being student errors, just something simple that they can fix. But there is something really going on, they're going to want to know that as quickly as possible so they can address it. Our team's very good. However, because there are so many issues, a lot of them with codes at the beginning of the semester, that they will be inundated. If you try to call, there'll be long wait times during the first 2 weeks. The rest of the time it's usually fine, okay? So if anybody has a code issue, which we shouldn't have because we're loading those codes in and you're only putting in the course code after that, but if you do have a code issue, see where it says live chat? You can go there and chat. But I recommend really only using that if you have a code issue, okay? If you have something serious going on, it's kind of our lowest level of tech support. I'd really like you to call and talk with somebody. Again, they're gonna ask for those details. If they can't resolve it on that call, they're going to give you a case ID, okay? It's just a reference, basically. Once you get that case ID, then go tell your instructor and say, hey, this is what's going on. Here's a case ID, she can forward that to me. I can help monitor it and get the answer back for you as quickly as possible. There is one more option. It's the email. About the only time you use the email is like if you're going through maybe a PrepU question, you say, I'm not sure if that answer's right. I got it wrong on there. You're saying it's this, but here's what the ebook says. And you tell them what product you're in and here's the page that I see this, maybe even a little screenshot of that question. And email that in, and they'll review it. They'll pull the question and then review it and see if it's right or wrong. And they get back to you. It's not always immediate, but this time of year, those emails, it just fills up. So don't do that unless, that's really about the only time I use the email part. But otherwise, don't get frustrated, but please report if you have an issue going on, call them if need be. The other tip I'll give is, we're East Coast time, right? Students out in California, they're 3 hours behind us. So if you call at 8 a.m., 5 o'clock out there, they're probably not calling in. If you're able to call first thing in the morning, you probably get in line much quicker. They also, so they're open 6 days a week, not open on Saturday. Unfortunately, they are open Sunday evening. I tell you that Sunday evening is very busy because a lot of students will study for the upcoming week and do a lot of things there. And what they find is, like, a lot of times campuses where people are living on campus, where you got a bunch of people studying and doing online homework, then you got a bunch of other people watching movies, and so bandwidth comes into play a lot of times there. But otherwise, so if you have any problems, make sure they contact tech support. Customer service is more like I ordered something and didn't have it or I need a credit or something like that, so I don't think you'll really need that part there. Otherwise, other things we'll see in here, go back to this. Any other questions that you think that come up quite a bit that you want me to focus on? I want to show, like I want to show the advisor. But nurses do such a better job because I can show them how to click buttons and you can tell a great story around it and why you're clicking those buttons. If you see anything that's like a video or concept and action animation, and sometimes you'll see those in the ebook, click on them, okay? There's Prep U questions. We get a lot of data from that, from all the students they answer across the country. So we see what percentage of students answer each answer on there, right? So some questions are really easy and almost everybody answers the same thing. Some are more difficult. Each time they write a new edition of the book, they'll go back and say, what were the biggest challenges? Where did students struggle the most? How can we improve that? Can we explain it better, right? Sometimes they've explained about as well as they can, but it's just really difficult to understand. So if they put a little video in there or an animation with somebody narrating and talking through it, now you can visually see what they're talking about, and you're like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. So even if it's not assigned, I would take advantage and actually watch those. Yay. Let me sign back in one more time. So let me see here. Where's my student view? So if we go in, do they see it like this, or do they see?
They can, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let's go into fluids and electricals. So within each one of these, you'll see your different options here. You've got a link out to ebook. Picmonics is another good one. So Picmonics, well, I've told you and tried to emphasize how much memorization is not a good way to study. Realistically, there are a few things that you can't memorize, and some of it does deal around pharmacology, the basis. They may change the, like how much or the dosages, etc. But there are some things that you can memorize. So if you go to Picmonics, and some of these maybe they're all available for you, but I think that there are some that may be assigned. It will bring up a little, little image, and it just, some of these can be kind of obnoxious. We don't have the sound on, that's actually a good thing. So the idea around this is it was created by former nursing and medical students. It said, hey, for those things that you can't memorize, we're going to use mnemonic devices and imagery to try to help you remember it. So it's got a little picture on here with different parts to it, and it will walk around and explain each of those parts. The one I'm most familiar with is like ibuprofen, right? Everybody knows ibuprofen. So I don't know if you remember, but there was a old character named Betty Boop, like kind of a cartoon character, etc. So it's a play off of that. It says ibuprofen, right? Kind of like Betty Boop. And so it goes around and all the different things that ibuprofen addresses or whatever. So like you may see something like an N that's got a face and it's all sad. Well, it's an NSAID, right? It will have a beaver that's flying through the air with fire shooting out behind it. Well, that's the fever beaver, and that's because ibuprofen addresses fever, right? They're just little things like that, and you're like, that's kind of corny, or that's kind of, but then you see another one, and I'll pull up like something different, and it'll be like, okay, I don't know what this is, but I can see there that it addresses fever, And what's the other one? It's got a general that kind of looks like the insurance general from the commercials, but that's general pain. So I'll pull up another medicine, I'm like, I don't know what this is, but it addresses pain and fever because I see those two, you know, there's consistencies between them. So I recommend taking a look at a couple of these, even if they're not assigned, because a lot of students really, really like them and find them helpful. But it goes through, explains everything, goes back through and gives a summary, and then allows you to do some quizzing on that too, just basic questions for it. So that is somewhat helpful. Some other things that are in here, there are some interactive tutorials. Again, some of these may be assigned, some not. Some of you are only going to do what's assigned. Other people will say, what else is in there for me? Here's some other things that are in there. So, watch and learn videos. A lot of times that'll go along with the skills. And then I want to show you Advisor just a little bit here. So, I think this should be live. Yeah. So, hospitals, healthcare systems use some type of system like this, okay? I don't know, there's not many around here that use this one specifically, are there? So Cleveland Clinic is probably the most well-known, up in Cleveland, obviously. They use this. If I get down around Athens, around Ohio University, Hocking College, most of their sites actually use this when they go out to clinicals. If not, they're using something like this, okay? So, instead of having you buy a drug guide, diagnostic book, a bunch of books that are outdated before you've ever purchased them, this is a live system that's updated on a regular basis. This is actually an educational version of what people use in the hospitals. So like this right here where it says drugs, this is going to be a drug guide that gets updated every 10 days on here. In the hospital, it's either every day or like 4 times a day, something like that. Very, very, you know, current and accurate. So you can go in here if I wanted to look up ibuprofen. If I don't know how to spell it, I can even pause and it'll give me some suggestions if I get close. And so it's a whole lot of information on here. So ibuprofen, how to pronounce it. You may also know it as Advil, children's Advil, etc. All these links on the left-hand side link to this page. So I can go down to like actions and adverse reactions. Anything on the right goes through this entire system. I'll show you how that's helpful. So it highlights it a little bit. So where might you use this? I can think of kind of 2 examples. Anybody? So you can start out with, you don't have to go right into meds. You can start out with a diagnosis. You can start out with signs and symptoms. So if somebody has abdominal pain, you can click on that, okay? You see all the hyperlinks on this page. So it's like goes down into like an anthill. There's all this stuff down here, all this information that you won't use, this much of it. That's a wealth of information. So you can go in and start with a patient that just has like abdominal pain. Go through it could be this or this or this. And you're going through and trying to figure out what it is, okay? And then once you figure out what it is, you come up with a care plan afterward. You can do all that right here in the system, okay? So that's how you could use it now. But if you're working with a patient, you may want to go over and you say, okay, well, I just want to verify you're not taking any other drugs, right? Specifically, you're not taking this or this because ibuprofen doesn't work well with whatever drug you're administering. But you also want to kind of educate the patient, okay? You may, when you take this, you may feel a little bit nauseous or you may feel a little bit dizzy or something. Let me know if you feel this. It's just a quick reference for it because these things do change quite a bit. So a ton of information. Your instructors can do a much better job than I can just because they can tell the stories around it. But so impactful if you're walking through a diagnosis or something. If you click this too, they're hearing your story about the patient and then seeing this as well. And it really just, I've seen some people do it and it's just so impactful when you do both of them. So there's also one thing that I think is cool is, I don't know why, but on the drug kit up here, there's a drug interaction. And I guess some students have gone and told the nurses about this at the hospital. Like, I didn't know you could do that. But you can put in the 2 drugs and tell whether or not they're compatible or if there's bad interactions on it. You can also look like a drug identifier. So say anything that you know about. So say you're working at a nursing home and you found a drug on the floor and you don't know whose it was or if it's important or whatever. You can put in what you know. So this thing is yellow and it's got 5 sides and if it has some name on it or whatever. And then you put in what information you have, and they'll bring up the options so you can identify it. So a lot of good tools in there. There's also some things with dosage calculations in there. Yeah, so tons of information. Again, if you go back to the beginning, you can see, you can go under diseases and conditions. So if you have to do some type of report, you get asked about something or whatever, quick reference for you to be able to pull up. Signs and symptoms under the diagnostic test, individual treatments for it. Lexicon stuff is in there. They have moved over to the problem-based care plans. I think Elsevier did the same thing. Apparently, it became very, very costly to use the ones that were in there before, so almost everybody is converting over to care-based now. Also, if you ever have to do anything with cultural perspectives, any type of report or something on that, you have quick access to that just because, you know, there are different cultures where maybe you don't touch a woman's head or a baby's head or something like that. We have large Amish population not real far from here. You have a lot of Somali in Columbus, just different things that maybe you haven't been exposed to. Sometimes it's important to make sure that you understand that before you start to interact with those patients. Okay, so covered a lot of things and got off to a little bit slow start. I apologize, and thank you very much for your patience on that. The biggest things are, there's going to be a follow-up email that's going to come through. You need to make sure that you're able to sign into your account, okay? Everybody should have an account here. If not, please provide your name and your Marion Tech email address to your instructor and let them know that you're having trouble getting in. You'll need to finish setting up that account. So go in, return user, put in your Marion Tech email. You should get an email from us, okay? That time you click on that link and you'll go in, create a password, put in your name, you're a Marion Tech student, etc. At that point you should be good. You'll go into concepts, you'll add in the library code so that you can see the collections that have been created for you. And then each of your classes most likely will have a PrepU class code for that as well. Your instructor will have, very important to get those in so that your instructor can see the results as you start to do things, okay? Aside from that, one of the big steps is going to be from that concepts, loading each of the books into this. It'll take a little bit of time, so like if you're doing it at home, if you have better internet somewhere else and you want to go to McDonald's, Panera, you know, somewhere public, download it, maybe be doing something else while it's downloading in the background. There should be a total of 8 books and concepts. I would go ahead and download all of them at this time, okay? Anybody has, so with this new process, everybody in the class should be getting access to the same things. So if anybody says, I feel like I should have access to this, I'm not seeing it, when I click on my content, I don't see it there, please again, in our system, we identify you by your email address, and the Marion Tech email address is what was provided for each of you. So please provide your name, your email address, and what you're missing or what the issue is, and we can get that resolved quickly for you. So, create the VitalSource account. Just gives you a little more flexibility on there for your ebooks. That's probably about it. The biggest thing, again, if you have problems, call tech support as quickly as possible. Don't wait if you can, because sometimes there might just be a surge at that particular moment. And do as much PrepU as you can. It's not always fun, but once you get to that exam, it makes it much easier, and then, you know, then you're happier. So, okay. Any questions at all? Thank you so much for the time and your patience. Please let me know if I can do anything else.